Episode 12 of the Dark Blue series, The Dark Blues and the Moment Systems Let Go. Let me start with an observation. When we look back at old records, old habits, old systems, old ways of thinking, we often assume that what lasted must have been stable. But when you examine them closely, a rupture appears. What once looked solid was often only inflated. It endured not because it worked, but because it was propped up. For a long time, systemic and psychological structures remained embedded in our lives, dense, influential, quietly sustaining the status quo. And their persistence was not accidental. They were held together by a promise. Endure this, and you will gain something later. But eventually, something changes. Their removal is not avoidance. It is not collapse by neglect. It is a conscious dismantling. The decision to take apart the final framework that no longer serves its purpose. And in that moment, the real reason for stagnation becomes visible. Once those structures are gone, we are forced into a confrontation, not with something new, but with what had always been there, immovable, only because we allowed it to be. At this threshold, the remaining constraints lose their cohesion. They no longer bind, they only echo. What replaces them is not chaos. What replaces them are two restored elements: accountability and clarity, emotional responsibility paired with intellectual discipline. When these two align, a new directive emerges, a pursuit of balance that many of us were taught to believe was already shared by everyone. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Balance is not automatic, and it is rarely equal. Old norms, attempts to reassert themselves. Familiar patterns resurface. Residual effects remain, and they must be acknowledged, even when they no longer determine our direction. This is an important distinction. When the transition is complete, these obstructive structures are not simply removed. They are rendered functionally irrelevant. They no longer shape decisions or define outcomes, even though their past influence can still be traced. And this is where many people misunderstand progress. Progress does not accelerate through force. It does not respond to intensity alone. It does not reward exhaustion. What moves us forward is comprehension. Different challenges require different responses. Understanding those distinctions rather than resisting them is what allows us to pass through the final stage. And so the pace increases, not through pressure, not through cohesion, but through deliberate ethical action. What no longer holds influence cannot restrain movement. To continue forward, the weight of the obstacle has already been removed. Keep exploring the episodes of the Dark Blue series at thedarkblueseries.wordpress.com.